Welcome YouTubers to another episode in my Grammar Hero series. In today's video, I'm going to show you the solutions to the arithmetic reasoning subtest of the fourth practice test on my website. In case this is your first time finding my channel, I recently created a website called mastertheasvab.com. There you can find 4 practice tests as well as other tools that will help you prepare for the ASVAB. And as it stands, it's completely free. All that said, let's go ahead and get started with today's video. Question 1 says Andy spent $120.37 on groceries in January, $108.45 in February, and $114.86 in March. What was the average monthly cost of Andy's groceries? So in this case, we have to find the average of the cost he spent on groceries per month. And to do that, we're going to use the formula to calculate the average. The way I like to remember the formula is average equals the sum over the total number of numbers. That is, average equals some number. Sum refers to all the data points, whereas the number refers to how many data points there are. So it looks like this. 120.37 plus 108.45 plus 114.86. And as you can see, there are 1, 2, 3 of these numbers. So again, it's the sum of the numbers divided by how many numbers there are. There are 3 numbers. Now all we have to do is work out the arithmetic to solve this problem, and I'm going to do this off to the side so I don't make a mistake. We have 120.37, 108.45, 114.86. Take your time as you do this. This is where you have a high likelihood of making small mistakes. When you're adding decimals, the first thing you should do is note where this decimal point is and just drop it down in place. And now with that done, we can go ahead and get started on this problem. 5 plus 6 is 11 plus 7 is 18. Carry the 1. 8 plus 1 is 9. 3 plus 4 is 7. 7 plus 9 is 16. Carry the 1. 8 plus 4 is 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Plus 1 is 13. Carry the 1. 2 plus 1 is 3. Plus 1 is 4. And finally, we have 1 plus 1 plus 1, which is 3. So we can see we're going to have 343.68 divided by 3. Again, you could regard this as a fraction, namely 343.68 over 3, or as I just said, you can regard this as long division, namely 343.68 divided by 3. Since we have to work this out to find the average, we do have to use long division. So we're going to go ahead and do 343.68 divided by 3. The way you do division with decimals is if the decimal's inside the division bracket, you just bring it right up. If this decimal was outside this division bracket, there's another method to doing that, and I'm going to discuss that in my ASVAB mathematics diagnostic video, which I'm going to be uploading sometime this week. Okay, so 3 goes into, let's go ahead and work this out this way. 3 goes into 3 one time, but I'm trying to do as much as I can in one swoop. So 3 goes into 34 11 times. Again, 3 times 11 is 33. Now we can subtract. 34 minus 33 is 1. We drop these down. 3, 6, 8. And again, now I'm asking myself, how many times does 3 go into 13? That's going to be 4. 3 times 4, of course, is 12. 13 minus 12 is 1. Drop down this 6, drop down this 8. 3 goes into, and let me give myself some more space here. 3 goes into 1, it doesn't. 3 goes into 16 5 times without going over. 3 times 5, of course, is 15. Subtract. 16 minus 15 is 1. Drop down this 8. 3 goes into 18 6 times. 6 times 3 is 18, so we can see there's no remainder. Therefore, we know our average is 114.56, which is right there. To do this problem, you had to know how to set it up using the formula to find averages. Then you had to do addition with decimals, and then you had to do division, long division with decimals. So there's quite a few steps to getting this one right. Nothing was too hard, but if you haven't done decimals in a while, you might have gotten stuck at some place. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. All right, number 2 says, on a hike, let me grab my pen real quick. Number 2 says, on a hike, Mike walked 5 miles in 2 hours. At this rate, how far will he walk in 7 hours? Right away, we should know that we have the elements of the distance formula. The distance formula is distance equals rate times time. And if we take a look, we have 5 miles, which is distance, and we have 2 hours, which is time. In light of that, I know that we're going to use the distance formula to solve this problem. The only thing we don't have is the rate, so let's go ahead and solve for that first, and then we can use that information to solve this second half of the problem. So distance, again equals rate times time. We're given a distance of 5. We don't know the rate, so we're just going to represent that with an R, and we're given a time of 2 hours. Okay. The goal here is to get R by itself, so to do that, I'm going to divide both sides by 2. This crosses out. We're left with R equals 5 over 2. R equals 5 divided by 2. You should be able to do in your head. That's 2.5. In other words, when Mike walked 5 miles in 2 hours, he did it at a rate at 2.5 miles per hour. Now we got to apply this to solve this part, namely how far will he walk in 7 hours. So again, we're going to use the distance formula. Now we're being asked to find the distance given that we know the rate as well as the time. So again, distance is what we're trying to find, so I'm going to leave that as B. We know the rate is 2.5, which we saw from the first part of the problem, and we know the time is 7 hours. So distance equals 2.5 times 7. If you can't do this in your head, you can always work it off to the side. Again, 2.5 times 7. The way you deal with a decimal in multiplication is like this. You move the decimal over however many times you need to, in this case 1 time, to make the decimal a whole number. So in reality, I'm working out 25 times 7, albeit with 1 decimal place to add back in at the end. 5 times 7 is 35, carry the 3. 7 times 2 is 14, plus 3 is 17. Add the 1 decimal back in, and we can see that this gives us a distance of 17.5 miles, which is right there. So in this case, again, there was nothing too hard to do, but you had to use 2 iterations of the distance formula, one to find the rate and the other to find the distance to solve this problem. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Okay, number 3 says Miss Brown bought a video cassette recorder for $450. She made a down payment of $50 and agreed to pay the balance in monthly installments of $40 a month. How many monthly payments will Miss Brown make? Okay, so the down payment is the amount you put down right away. So in that case, that's going to be taken away from the total from the get-go. So 450 minus 50, which is going to give us $400. So in other words, Miss Brown has to pay installments of $40 until she pays back the total of $400. So that looks like this. 400 divided by 40. And by solving this, we'll find out how many months it's going to take her to pay this back. When you have zeros and a division problem like this, instead of doing 400 divided by 40, which would take a lot of work, you can simply cross out these zeros, and now the problem becomes 40 divided by 4. 40 divided by 4, of course, is 10. So in light of that, we know it will take her 3 months or 10 months to pay back the $400 she borrowed to purchase the cassette. Okay. Fairly straightforward problem there. Number 4 says, on a map, 1 centimeter represents 10 kilometers. If 2 cities are 4.5 centimeters apart on the map, what is the actual distance between them in kilometers? So to solve this problem, we're going to have to set up a proportion, and it's going to look like this. 1 centimeter represents 10 kilometers. And we want to use this information to figure out how far 2 cities are apart that are 4.5 centimeters apart on the map. We want to know the actual distance in kilometers. So one thing you want to notice is I put the centimeters in the numerator and the kilometers in the denominator. When you set up proportions with different measurements, you do have to make sure that if you put centimeters in the numerator, you put them in the numerator on the other side of the proportion. Now, to solve this problem, we actually have to take these units of measurement away. So it's going to look like this. 1 over 10 equals 4.5 over x. Now to proceed, we cross multiply. That is, we do 1 times x, which is just x. 4.5 times 10. Whenever you multiply something by 10, or 100 or 1,000, you just take this decimal and shift it according to how many zeros there are here. So in 10, there's 1 0, so we're going to shift this just once. So I know 10 times 4.5 is just 45, and therefore we know the actual distance between the 2 cities is going to be 45 kilometers. Okay? All right, number 5 says the temperature outside is 89 degrees Fahrenheit. What is the temperature in degrees Celsius? Use Celsius equals 5/9 Fahrenheit minus 32. So thankfully they gave us the conversion formula. All we have to do to solve this one is to plug it in accordingly. So let me just copy down the formula. Celsius equals 5/9 times F minus 32. Again, where C refers to Celsius and F refers to Fahrenheit. We're asked to convert 89 degrees Fahrenheit to Celsius, so that's going to be 5/9, 89 degrees Fahrenheit minus 32. Let's go ahead and work this out to the side. 89 minus 32. 9 minus 2 is 7. 8 minus 3 is 5. So 5/9 times, again, 89 minus 32 is 57. Now we got to do 5/9 times 57. Again, I can't do that mentally, so let's do it off to the side. When you're multiplying fractions, if you're multiplying a fraction by a whole number, you can make that whole number a fraction by placing it over 1, and then you multiply straight across. So this becomes this, and let me do this off to the side. 5/9 times 57/1. That's the same as, and again, we're multiplying straight across. That's the same as 5 times 57 divided by 9 times 1. 9 times 1, of course, is 9. 5 times 57, let's go ahead and work that out. 5 times 7 is 35, carry the 3. 5 times 5 is 25, plus 3 is 25, 26, 27, 28. So this becomes 285 divided by 9. Make sure I did that right. 5 times 7 is 35. That's right. 5 times 5. Yep, that's right. So now we're going to do 285 divided by 9. Again, this is long division. So 285, let me move up a little bit, divided by 9. 9 goes into 28 3 times without going over. 9 times 3, of course, is 27. And again, right away, we can already see what the answer is going to be. This is going to start with 3. This starts with 4. This starts with 5. So we know those aren't viable answer choices. 28 minus 27 is 1. We drop down this 5 accordingly. 9 goes into 15 1 time without going over. 9 times 1, of course, is 9. 15 minus 9 is 6. 9 doesn't go into 6. It's too small. We have to add a 0. By adding that 0, we have to add a decimal in the top of the division bracket. 9 goes into 60 6 times without going over. 9 times 6 is 54. 60 minus 54 is 6. Again, we have to add a 0. 9 goes into 60 6 times without going over. So as we can see, this is going to repeat. So it looks as if we just rounded up to 31.7. So we know 89 degrees is the same as 31.7 degrees Celsius. Again, a lot of work, but none of it was too difficult to do. All right, number 6 says what numbers should appear to complete the sequence? And we're given 310, 315, 319, 330, and 337. To solve sequences, you really just have to play with them until you get the right pattern that works. Go ahead and drag this up a little bit. So we're given 312, 315, 319, 330, and 337. And again, you might not get this right away, so just keep playing with the numbers until you find the pattern. I know to get from 312 to 315, you have to add 3. To get from 315 to 319, you have to add 4. To get from 330 to 337, you have to add 7. So it looks like this goes up by 1 every time. So this is plus 3, this is plus 4. I know this is going to be plus 5. 319 plus 5 is going to be 324. 324, and again, this is going to be plus 6. 324 plus 6 is 330. 330 plus 7 is 337. So in light of that, we know we found the right sequence, and the correct answer. Okay, number 7 says body mass index is equal to weight in kilograms divided by height in meters squared. A man who weighs 120 kilograms has a BMI of 30. How tall is he? So the first thing I want to do is write this formula out. And again, we're told BMI is equal to weight in kilograms over height in meters squared. So I basically took this formula, which was written out, and put it in a mathematical formula. We're told what his weight is in kilograms as well as his BMI. So we can plug those two things in accordingly. Again, we're told the BMI is 30. We're told the weight is 120. And we want to know how tall he is. So at this point, we can start working on solving this problem. The goal here, as I mentioned in a problem earlier, is to solve for the missing variable h in this case. So to do that, we're going to try to get it by itself. And the first thing I'm going to do is to get h squared by itself is I'm going to multiply this side of the equation by 1 over 120. What I do to this side of the equation, I also have to do to this side of the equation. This crosses out and leaves you with 1 over h squared. When you multiply this out, again, you can put 30 over 1 to make it a fraction, but we can reduce this before we go any further. I recognize that 30 goes into 124 times, so 30 goes into 30 once, and 30 goes into 124 times, so this becomes 1 over 1 and 4 times 1, which is 1/4. Now we still have some work to do to solve for h. We can see that we have 1 over h squared, so what I'm going to do is take the square root of both sides. If it's helpful, you can rewrite this as this. You can actually break these up accordingly. Okay. The square root of 1 is just 1. The square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 1 is 1. Square root of h squared, this just crosses out and leaves you with h. Now at this point, you have h in the denominator, which is no good for solving this problem. We can go ahead and just cross multiply to move h out of the denominator. That is, we can do h times 1 and 2 times 1. H times 1 is just h, 2 times 1 is 2. So we can see that the height is going to be just 2 meters. Okay? Number 8 says carpet stain protector costs 65 cents per square yard to apply. How much will it cost to apply the protectant to a 16-foot by 18-foot carpet? So right away, we should recognize that we have costs per yard and we're given measurements in feet. So at some point, we're going to have to make a conversion, and we should be able to know, we should know that there are 3 feet per yard. And if there are 3 feet per yard, there are 9 feet per square yard. And that's because of this. Again, imagine this is 1 square. Again, there are 3 feet per yard. So if this was a 1 yard by 1 yard square, that would be the same as having a 3-foot by 3 foot square. This would just be 1 square yard. This would be 9 square feet. And these are equivalent. Again, 9 feet per or 9 square feet per square yard. And we may have to use either one of these conversions to solve this one. I know 16 is not divisible by 3, so I'm not going to use this conversion right away. Instead, I'm going to work this out as I would normally and then make the conversion toward the end of the problem. So again, we want cost per square yard. So we know we're going to be using area. Area equals length times width. Again, this is kind of a square, this is a rectangular-ish room that's 16 feet wide by 18 feet long. Again, this is your length, this is your width. So let's go ahead and plug that in accordingly. So this is 16 times 18. And I'm going to work this off to the side so I don't make any mistakes. 8 times 6 is going to be 48. Carry the 4. 6 times 1 is 6. Plus 4 is 10. Add a 0 since we're starting this number. 1 times 8 is 8. 1 times 1 is 1. Let's add. 0 plus 8 is 8. 0 plus 8 is 8. 1 plus 1 is 2. So we know that this is going to be 288 feet squared. And again, the answer's in yards, but I haven't converted this to yards yet. This is feet squared. So I'm going to have to use this conversion, this second one, 9 square feet per square yard, so I can solve this problem. So I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to make the conversion. Again, I'm doing the conversion right here. And that's going to be 288 over 9 to convert square feet to square yards. And let's do this off to the side. 288 divided by 9. 9 goes into 28 3 times. 9 times 3 is 27. 28 minus 27 is 1. Drop down this 8. 9 goes into 18 2 times. 9 times 2 is 18, so we can see there's no remainder. So we can see that 288 feet squared is the same as 32 yards squared. And now that we've made this conversion, we can go ahead and use this information to solve. Again, we're told that it costs 0.65 per square yard to apply. We have 32 square yards, so now we're going to do 32 times 0.65. Again, we're doing multiplication with decimals, so the trick is to move this decimal place twice, and in reality we're doing 32 times 65, albeit with 2 decimals to add back in at the end. 5 times 2 is 10, carry the 1. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 1 is 16. Add a 0 since we're starting this number. 6 times 2 is 12. Carry the 1. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 1 is 19. 0 plus 0 is 0. 6 plus 2 is 8. 9 plus 2 is, or 9 plus 1 is 10. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. Add your 2 decimals back in, and you can see that's going to be 20.8. So we know that it's going to cost $20.80 to apply the carpet protector if it costs 0.65 per square yard. A lot of work to do this problem. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. All right, number 9 says, in a manufacturing plant that produces new computers, a 0.15 probability exists that a new computer will be defective if 5 computers are manufactured, what's the probability all of them will be defective? Before I do this problem, I like to try to think through the problem logically. We're given a probability that a computer is going to be defective, and we want to find out what the probability all of them are going to be defective. I like to think about this problem by relating it to the probability of flipping a coin 5 times in a row. So let's say we're looking at a coin. A coin has a head side and a tail side. The odds of flipping a heads on any given toss is 1 out of 2. Again, there's 2 sides in a coin. The odds of flipping a heads on any given toss is 1/2, or 0.5. The odds of flipping heads 2 times in a row is 1/2 times 1/2. The odds of flipping a heads 3 times in a row is 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2. The odds of flipping a heads 4 times in a row is 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2. And the odds of flipping heads 5 times in a row is 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2. That is a very small number. In this case, we can apply the same principle that we do with coin tosses to solve this problem. Again, we're told that the probability of a computer being defective is 0.15. Therefore, the odds of 5 computers being defective is the same as flipping a heads 5 times in a row. It's going to be 0.15 times 0.15 times 0.15 times 0.15 times 0.15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. So in order to calculate this, you would just do 0.15 times 0.15 times 0.15 times 0.15 times 0.15. So let's go ahead and do that. Again, if you're doing really well in the ASVAB, you're going to see problems that require you to do a lot of work to get the answer. So let's go ahead and start with 0.15 times 0.15. Again, we're multiplying decimals by decimals. So I'm going to shift this decimal place twice, this decimal place twice, for a total of 4 decimals that I have to add back in at the end. So this is 15 times 15, albeit with 4 decimals to add back in at the end. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times, I carry the 2. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 2 is 7. Add a 0 since we're starting with this number. 5 times 1 is 5. 1 times 1 is 1. Let's add. 0 plus 5 is 5. 7 plus 5 is 12. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. Add our 4 decimals back in. 1, 2, 3, 4. We can see that 0.15 times 0.15 is the same as 0.0225. So these two are done. Now we got to do this one. 0.0225 times 0.15. So that looks like this. 0.0225 times 0.15. Again, we got to shift our decimals accordingly. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2. So we're going to shift it a total of 6 decimal places at the end. And again, this is going to be 0.225 times 1.5, albeit with 6 decimals to shift back in at the end. 5 times 5 is 25. Carry the 2. 5 times 2 is 10 plus 2 is 12. Carry the 1. 5 times 2 is 10 plus 1 is 11. Carry the 1. 5 times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1. Add a 0 since we're starting this row. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times nothing is nothing. Let's add. 0 plus 5 is 5. 2 plus 5 is 7. 2 plus 1 is 3. 2 plus 1 is 3. 0 plus nothing is 0. And we got to shift our 6 decimals back in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so we can see that this is going to be 0.003375. So we know this gets us 0.003375. Cross that out. Now we got to do 0.003375 times 0.15. Okay, I dropped my microphone there because this problem's getting pretty difficult. So again, let's do 0.003375 times 0.15. And again, shift your decimals accordingly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And 1, 2. So in reality, I'm going to start this right here. 0.03375 times 15, albeit with 8 decimals to move back in. So we got 5 times 5 is 25, carry the 2. 7 times 5 is 35 plus 2 is 37, carry the 3. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 3 is 15, 16, 17, 18, carry the 1. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 1 is 16, carry the 1. 5 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1. 5 times 0 is 0. Let's add a 0 since we're starting this number. 5 times 1 is 5. 1 times 7 is 7. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 0 is 0. Let's add. 5 plus 0 is 5. 7 plus 5 is 12. Carry the 1. 8 plus 8 is 16. Carry the 1. 6 plus 3 is 9. Plus 1 is 10. Carry the 1. 1 plus 3 is 3. Plus 1 plus 3 is 4. Plus 1 is 5. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. Let's add our 8 decimals back in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we can see that this gets us 0.00050625. That crosses out. We just have one more to do, one more iteration. And let's go ahead and do that. Again, this is going to be 0.00050625 times 0.15. Shift our decimals accordingly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2. So in total, we're going to be shifting 10 decimals. This is going to be 0, 0, 0, 5, 0, 6, 2, 5, and 15, albeit with 10 decimals to shift back in. 5 times 5 is 25. Carry the 2. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12. Carry the 1. 6 plus 5 is, or 6 times 5 is 30, plus 1 is 31. Carry the 3. 5 times 0 is nothing. Add 3 is 3. 5 times 5 is 25. Carry the 2. 5 times nothing is nothing, plus 2 is 2. And then 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 0 is 0. Let's go ahead and drop down to 0 since we're starting this number. 5 times 1 is 5. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 6 is 6. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 5 is 5. Let's see. Add up my 0. 5, 2, 6, 0, 5. Let's go ahead and add. 5 plus 0 is 5. 5 plus 2 is 7. 2 plus 1 is 3. 6 plus 3 is 9. 5 plus nothing is 5. 5 plus 2 is 7. And 2 plus nothing is 2. I've made a mistake here somewhere. Yep, we've made a mistake. Let's start this one over. Five times 5 is 25. Carry the 2. 5 times 2 is 10. Plus 2 is 12. Carry the 1. 6 times 5 is 30. Plus 1 is 31. Carry the 3. 5 times nothing is 0. Plus 3 is 3. 5 times 5 is 25. Add a 0. We got 5, 2, 6, 0, 5. I don't know where I got this 2 from. I added too many 2's there. That's what I did. So let's go ahead and add these up. 5 plus 0 is 5. 5 plus 2 is 7. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 plus 6 is 9. 5 plus nothing is 5. 5 plus 2 is 7. Let's go ahead and add our 10 decimals back in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we can see that this is going to be 0.0007599375, which is, if you round it, the same as 0.000076. This 9 kicks up, this 5 does 6. And there we have it. We just solved it. Took a lot of work. Chances are you will not see something like this on the ASVAB unless you're doing very, very well. But that said, that's how you would solve this one. Okay, number 10 says an airplane traveled 1,824 miles in 3 hours. What was its average speed in miles per hour? So right away we should notice that we have our distance and our time, but we don't have our rate, which is speed. So in light of that, we know we have all the parts of the distance formula, which is distance equals rate times time. Again, distance is 1,824 miles. Our rate is unknown, so we're going to leave that as r, and our time is 3. Again, the goal here is to solve for our rate. That is to get r by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is divide both sides by 3, and by doing that, that gets rid of this 3. That leaves me with r equals 1824 divided by 3. And again, we can regard this as a fraction, 1824 over 3, or 1824 divided by 3. Okay, and to solve this one, we do have to do the long division. 3 goes, and I can do this one mentally, so can you. Just take a look. 18 is divisible by 3. 24 is divisible by 3. 3 goes into 18 6 times. 3 goes into 24 8 times. So you should be able to identify that this would be 608 miles per hour. That said, if you couldn't do the mental math, let's go ahead and work it out. Three goes into 1, it doesn't, it's too small. 3 goes into 18. As I said, 6 times without going over. 3 times 6 is 18. Subtract. 18 minus 18 is 0. We drop down this 2. We drop down this 4. 3 doesn't go into 2. It's too small, so we have to add a 0 there. 3 goes into 24 8 times. 8 times 3 is 24, albeit with no remainder. So we know in this case the rate is going to be 608 miles per hour. All right, number 11 says the product of 2 consecutive odd numbers is 399. What are the numbers? So there are 2 ways to do this problem. We can see that all of our answer choices are consecutive odd numbers. So we can simply multiply these together to see which one would work. Or we can set this up algebraically. Again, the product of 2 consecutive numbers is 399. So if x is one number, the next odd number would be x plus 2 equals 399. Okay, and to solve this further, we would distribute this x accordingly. X times x is x squared. X times 2 is 2x equals 399. To get this into a form we can factor, we subtract 399 from both sides. So this gives us x squared plus 2x minus 399 equals 0. Now we can go ahead and factor this, and I'm going to rewrite this over here. X squared plus 2x minus 399 equals 0. Again, this is factorable, so we're going to go ahead and set it up to be factored. I'm going to cheat a little bit since I know what the factors are. Again, we're trying to find 2 numbers that multiply to negative 399 but add to positive 2. So that's going to be positive 21 and negative 19. Again, 19 times 21 is going to get you 399. 21 minus 19 is positive 2. So now we're going to go ahead and solve. X minus 19 equals 0. X plus 21 equals 0. We add 19 to both sides to get x by itself. So x equals 19. We're going to subtract 21 from both sides to get x by itself. X equals negative 21. So these are your 2 possible choices for x. We know it's going to be positive since we want 2 consecutive numbers. So we know it's going to be 19 is going to be one of them. And again, according to the formula, if x equals 19, the second x equals 19 plus 2. So it's going to be 19. 19 plus 2 is 21. Okay. Instead of trying to find 2 factors that multiply to 399 and add the positive 2, again, look at your answer choices, find out which ones they are, and then factor accordingly. The other way to do this problem would to have been to do multiply all these. Again, 19 times 17. See if that gets you 399. 21 times 19. See if that gets you 399. So you can either solve this one algebraically, or you can simply multiply these 2 together to get 399. The choice is yours. If I was taking this test and time was of the essence, I would have done it this first way. I would have just multiplied these together until I found the right solution. Again, it's nice to know how to do it algebraically, but when you're taking the test, sometimes you can actually use the answer choices to solve the problem pretty quickly. Okay, number 12 says a dosage of a certain medication is 13 cc's per 100 pounds. What is the dosage for a patient who weighs 185 pounds? So again, you should be able to recognize that this is going to be a proportion problem. 13 cc's per 100 pounds equals how many cc's per 185 pounds? And as I did in the previous problem, once we set this up, and again, cc's is in the numerator, and pounds is in the denominator of the proportion. Once we set these up, we go ahead and drop the units and just solve the proportion. So that's going to look like this: 13 over 100 equals x over 185. And now we're cross multiplying. That is, we're doing 100 times x and 13 times 185. So that looks like this: 100x equals 13 times 185. Let's go ahead and work this out. 185 times 13. Again, don't make a mistake by messing up your arithmetic. 5 times 3 is 15, carry the 1. 8 times 3 is 24, plus 1 is 25, carry the 2. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5. Add a 0 since we're starting this number. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 8 is 8. 1 times 1 is 1. Let's add. 5 plus nothing is 5. 5 plus 5 is 10. Carry the 1. 5 plus 8, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Plus 1 is 14. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So we can see that this is going to be 100x equals 13 times 185, which is the same as 2405. I'm going to divide both sides by 100 to get x by itself. This leaves us with x equals 2405 divided by 100. Again, when we're doing division with 10, 100, or 1,000, we just shift the decimal according to how many zeros there are. So in this case, there are 2 zeros and 100, so we're going to shift this decimal 2 times. So I know 2405 divided by 100 is 24.05. Therefore, the answer is 24.05 cc's. Which is right there. "13 says during exercise, a person's heart rate should be between 60 and 90% of the difference between 220 and the person's age. According to this guideline, what should a 45-year-old person's maximum heart rate be?" So we're given a formula, albeit in a word problem. The first thing I'm going to do is convert this formula to a mathematical formula. So heart rate is going to be in the middle. And we're told that during exercise, the heart rate should be between 90%, which is 0.9, of the difference between 220 and the person's age, which I'm going to represent as x, and 60% of the difference between 220 and the person's age, which I'm going to represent as x. We're told in this problem that the person's age is 45, so we can go ahead and plug that in. 220 minus 45. Again, heart rate 0.9 times 220 minus 45. Again, we're asked what their maximum heart rate should be. So we're going to go ahead and focus on this side of the equation, since this is going to get us their absolute maximum heart rate. So it's going to be heart rate is less than or equal to 0.9 times 220 minus 45. Let's go ahead and work out. 0 minus 5 we can't do. We have to borrow a 1. This becomes 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. 1 minus 4 we can't do. We have to borrow a 1. This becomes 1. This becomes 11. 11 minus 4 is 7. 1 minus nothing is 1. So 220 minus 45 is 175. Again, this is 0.9 times 175. I'm going to multiply this by 0.9. Again, we're doing multiplication with decimals, so we have to shift it once, and then we'll add it back in at the end. 9 times 5 is 45. Carry the 4. 9 times 7 is 63. Plus 4 is 67. Carry the 6. 9 times 1 is 9. Plus 6 is 15. Shift our 1 decimal back in. This is 157.5 beats per minute, which is right there. Okay, so that was that one. It says a waitress earns an average tip of 17% of the cost of food she serves. If she serves $375 worth of food in one evening, how much money in tips will she earn on average? So to find this one, we're going to do 375 times 0.17. Again, she makes approximately 17% of the worth of the value of food she sells. So to find her tips, we're going to do 375 times 0.17. Again, we're doing multiplication with decimals, so we're going to move this decimal over 2 times and add those decimals back in at the end. So this is going to be 375 times 17, albeit with 2 decimals to add back in at the end. 5 times 7 is 35. Carry the 3. 7 times 7 is 49. Plus 3 is 49, 50, 51, 52. Carry the 5. 7 times 3 is 21. Plus 5 is 26. Add a 0. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 7 is 7. 1 times 3 is 3. Let's add. 0 plus 5 is 5. 5 plus 2 is 7. 6 plus 7 is 13. Carry the 1. 2 plus 3 is 5. Plus 1 is 6. Add our 2 decimals back in, and we can see that that's going to be 63.75, which is right there. All right, number 15 says a house contains one 12 by 14 foot room, one 12 by 10 foot room, and one 8 by 12 foot room. What's the total amount of carpeting needed to carpet all 3 rooms? So most rooms in homes are rectangular. So we know we're going to be using the formula for area equals length times width. That said, if you take a look, again, we have the room's lengths and widths in feet, but we're given an answer in yards. So at some point, again, we're going to have to make a conversion. There are 3 feet per yard, and therefore they're going to be 9 feet squared per yard squared. And again, we get that by doing this. Again, imagine this was 1 yard, and this was 1 yard, a 1 by 1 square yard. Again, there are 3 feet per 1 yard. So again, 3 times 3 is 9, 1 times 1 is 1. So there are 9 square feet per square yard. And more than likely, we're going to be using this conversion to solve this problem. But first, let's go ahead and find out the total area of these rooms. And again, if these were all divisible by 3, a 14 was divisible by 3, and 10 was divisible by 3, and 8 was divisible by 3, I would use this conversion right out of the gate. But in light of the fact they're not, I'm going to work this out and make the conversion at the end. So again, we're going to find the total area, which I'm going to represent as A tot. And that's going to be the area of room 1 plus the area of room 2 plus the area of room 3. And again, we know that this is going to be length times width. This is going to be length times width. This is going to be length times width since they're all rectangles. So A total is going to be, area of room 1 is 12 times 14 plus area of room 2 is going to be 12 times 10 plus the area of room 3, which is going to be 8 times 12. So let's keep working this out. We should be able to see right off the bat that 12 times 10 is 120. And if you can't see this, 8 times 12 is the same as 8 times 2 is 16, carry the 1. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 1 is 9, plus 96. And then I'm going to do this one last. 14 times 12. 4 times 2 is 8. 1 times 2 is 2. Add a 0 since we're starting this number. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 1 is 1. Add 0 plus 8 is 8. 2 plus 4 is 6. 1 plus nothing is 1. So this is going to be 168. And as you can tell, these problems in this practice test are really pushing my limits, because this is a lot of work. Regardless of how good you are at math, you still have to do a lot of tedious math and conversions to really get through this section. So let's go ahead and add these up. Okay, and again, this is area total. 8 plus 6 is 14, carry the 1. 9 plus 1 is 10, 6 plus 2 is 8, so this is going to be 18. Carry the 1, 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. So this is going to be 384 feet squared. Our answers are given in yards, so we have to make this conversion to square yards. Again, there are 9 square feet per square yard, so I'm going to do A total equals 384 divided by 9. 384 divided by 9. 9 goes into 38. 9 times, let's see, 9 times 4 gets you 36, so this is going to be 4. Again, 9 times 4 is 36. Subtract 38 minus 36 is 2. Drop down this 4. 9 goes into, let's see, 38 minus 36 is 2. Drop down the 4. 9 goes into 24 2 times. 9 times 2 is 18. Subtract. 24 minus 18 is going to be 6. 9 doesn't go into 6, so we have to add a 0. By adding that 0, we have to add a decimal. 9 goes into 60. 5 times or 6 times without going over. 9 times 6 is 54. So we can see that this is going to be 54. 60 minus 54 is 6. So we're left with the same thing. Again, 9 doesn't go into 6. We have to add a 0. 9 goes into 60 6 times. So we can see that this is going to repeat infinitely. So I'm going to go ahead and round this up to 42.7 yards squared. Okay. Let's see if they did that in the answer choice. And they did. Okay. All right. 16 says a boat can travel 16 miles up a river in 2 hours. The same boat can travel 36 miles downstream in 3 hours. What is the speed of the boat in still water? So right away we should recognize that we have the elements of the distance formula. Namely, we have a distance here, we have a time here, we have a distance here, we have a time here. In both of these, we're just missing the rate. But in light of the fact we have two different conditions, namely upstream and downstream, what I'm going to do is set up a chart to help me keep my work organized. Again, distance equals rate times time. And again, we're going to have two different conditions, 1, 2. For this first condition, I'm going to make it this one. So distance is going to be 16 miles. We know the rate is, or the time is 2 hours. We don't know what our rate is. I'm going to make this one our second condition. So we know our distance is 36 miles. We know our time is 3 hours. And now we want to know what the speed of the boat is in still water. This first condition is upstream, and this second condition is downstream. The stream, or the current, actually affects the rate of the boat. If you're traveling upstream, you're going against the current, so it's actually going to slow your rate down. So this is going to be, I'm going to represent this as rate minus current. Again, that current's taking speed away from you since you're going against the current. And in this case, if you're going downstream, the current's actually speeding you up. So I'm going to actually represent this as rate plus current. And in light of that, we can now solve this problem. And instead of doing distance equals rate times time, I'm going to rewrite this to be rate times time equals distance. That is, I'm going to set it up like an algebra problem. Again, I just took this D and moved it over here. So let's go ahead and proceed accordingly. Again, we're using rate times time equals distance. We know our rate for condition 1 is R minus C. We know our time is 2 hours. And we know our distance is 16. For this second condition, we know our rate is R plus C. We know our time is 3 hours, and we know our distance is 36 miles. So with that done, I'm going to go ahead and distribute this 2 here, here, and I'm going to distribute this 3 here and here. 2 times R is R. 2 times negative C is negative 2C equals 16. 3 times R is 3R. 3 times C is positive 3C, and that's going to be 36. And I made a mistake here. 2 times R is 2R. Okay? I dropped that off by accident. Now I'm going to reduce both of these. That is, I'm going to divide all of these by a factor of 2, and I'm going to reduce all of these by a factor of 3. 2R divided by 2 is R. Negative 2C divided by 2 is negative C. 16 divided by 2 is 8. 3R divided by 3 is just R. 3C divided by 3 is just C. And 36 divided by 3 is going to be 3 goes into 3 one time, 3 goes into 6 2 times, 12. Okay? Now we have a system of equations that we can solve. And again, we're trying to solve for R. When we have a system of equations, the goal is to add one equation to another to get rid of one of the variables. So I'm going to add this second equation to this first one to get rid of the variable C. So that's going to look like this. R minus C equals 8. R plus C equals 12. I'm going to add these equations. R plus R is 2R. Negative C plus positive C is nothing. 8 plus 12 is 20. So you can see that by adding this second equation to this first equation, I got rid of the variable c, the current variable, and that gives me 2r equals 20. If I divide both sides by 2, that gives me r equals 10. So therefore, I know the speed or the rate at which the boat travels in still water is 10 miles per hour. And that answers the question. But let's see if this makes sense logically. If it's traveling 10 miles per hour in still water, we can find out the speed of the current by plugging that in here. Again, r minus c equals 8. Let's do it in the second one. Let's go ahead and plug this in right there. R plus c equals 12. We already found our rate. We know it's 10. So 10 plus c equals 12. Subtract 10 from both sides. We're left with c equals 10 minus, or 12 minus 10, which is 2. So we know the rate of the boat in still water, and we also know the current speed, which is 2 miles per hour. Let's go ahead and check this to make sure it works. Again, distance equals rate times time is what we're working with. We know the rate is 10. We know the current is 2. 10 minus 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16, so this checks out. Again, 10 is the speed or the rate at which the boat's traveling in still water. The current is 2. 10 plus 2 is 12. 12 times 3 is 36, so we know this checks out. Okay? So again, the answer to this problem is 10 miles per hour. And again, that refers to the rate at which the boat is traveling in still water. Okay, so that's all I have for you in this video. In all honesty, this was a pretty challenging practice test. It was very taxing mentally to work out all the arithmetic. And you should feel that way when you take the real ASVAB, which is the purpose of these practice tests, to really prepare you for what the real test is going to be like. That said, if you found the content helpful, feel free to give it a thumbs up. In addition, if you have any suggestions, feel free to leave some comments in the comment section below. But on that note, I'm going to go ahead and cut you loose. Konnichiwa.